Imagine saying you're better than the Beatles at their own game. Phil Collins actually did just that. But was he right? Let's dive into the story behind his bold claim and see if it holds up. Going up against the Beatles is generally considered career suicide. There are countless paths to global superstardom, but directly challenging one of the most influential and celebrated bands in history. That's a risky move. Yet, Phil Collins, riding high on his solo success, dared to suggest he'd surpass them in a particular area. To be fair, the fervor surrounding Collins's early solo work rivaled Beatlemania itself. While he might not have matched their songwriting genius, Collins's omnipresence on radio and in popular culture was undeniable. It felt like every pop station worldwide was playing his hits non-stop, a level of saturation reminiscent of the Beatles' peak. And this is the part most people miss: Collins wasn't trying to compete with them directly. He understood the magnitude of their impact, having witnessed it firsthand as a young fan in A Hard Day's Night. So, his solo success, while significant, didn't put him on par with the Beatles' consistent brilliance. The 1990s presented a different landscape for Collins. Although he achieved some success, including contributing to a beloved Disney soundtrack, he faced a period where he was considered uncool, largely thanks to the rise of bands like Oasis. But here's where it gets controversial. It was during this time, with the album Dance into the Light, that Collins made his audacious claim. That album marked a shift for Collins, as he began writing with guitarists in mind. The song It's in Your Eyes particularly stood out, possessing a certain Beatles-esque charm. Collins never hid his influences, drawing inspiration from Motown and, of course, the Beatles. He even went so far as to suggest that his songs from that era surpassed the Beatles Anthology reunion project. Collins specifically pointed to songs like It's in Your Eyes and That's What You Said, stating, "It's in your eyes and That's What You Said are both Beatles, really. In fact, when I sent my demos into my keyboard player, Brad Cole, he said, this is what Free as a Bird should have sounded like. Because it is more Beatle than the actual Beatle reunion thing. But that only comes down to perspective half the time. Compared to the Beatles' timeless classics, Collins felt he'd captured their essence more effectively in those particular tracks. He felt like he outdid the Beatles at their own game with tunes like It's in Your Eyes. But here's the counterpoint: Free as a Bird and It's in Your Eyes are fundamentally different in their intent. Free as a Bird, completed with Jeff Lynne's production, was a glimpse into what the Beatles might have sounded like in the 90s. Collins's song, on the other hand, felt more like a tribute, akin to George Harrison's When We Was Fab. Neither approach is inherently superior. They simply serve different purposes. Collins aimed to evoke the excitement and joy that the Beatles brought to their fans, while Free as a Bird offered a more nuanced exploration of the band's unique dynamic. So, did Phil Collins actually outdo the Beatles? That's debatable. He certainly captured a similar spirit in It's in Your Eyes. But whether that surpasses the originality and innovation of the Beatles' own work is a matter of personal opinion. What do you think? Did Collins have a point, or was he just being overly confident? Share your thoughts in the comments below.